Hello everyone, welcome to this special session where we are going to design a study plan for students who are targeting RBI Grade B Exam, and today's target is to create a study plan for Phase-2 exams, which is slated to happen in the end of June. Now, in the earlier session, we had seen how you should prepare for the phase 1 exams, right? So if you have not gone through that lecture, then go through that lecture. The link would be in the description. Now, today we are going to look at how to prepare for phase 2 exams, and like last lecture, the basis would be the Meritshine RBI Grade B course. So those students who have just started with the course or who are going to start with the course, how they should plan their preparation for the next 2 to 3 months. So that would be our target. Now, before moving on to the study plan, topic wise, section wise, let's look at what are the areas that are checked in phase 2 exams of RBI Grade B. So there are 3 areas: English Descriptive, Management in Finance, and ESI, Economic and Social Issues. So we will first look at what we need to do in English Descriptive for the next 2 to 3 months, what we need to do in Management, what we need to do in Finance, and what we need to do in ESI in the same order. So English Descriptive and Management, I would tell you what you should be doing, how you should be using the course so that you get maximum benefit out of it. And for Finance and ESI, Ravi sir would be taking forward this lecture and would be guiding you how you should handle the Finance and ESI part of the course. Okay, right? So first, let's make some things clear. What are the assumptions? As I mentioned in the phase 1 lecture also, that phase 1 study plan lecture, that the assumptions are 2. One is that the first 10 days from now onwards, like let's say till Friday, not also 10 days, but till Friday next week, right? You should concentrate minimal on phase 2 and maximum on phase 1. So the day from when you start phase 1 preparation, 10 days from then, which most probably would get over by Friday, Saturday next week, you should be done with a considerable portion of phase 1, and then you should balance phase 1 and phase 2 together, because we cannot do this that we do phase 1 till the phase 1 exam, and then after phase 1 exam we start preparation of phase 2. We can't do that because such a huge syllabus that is there for phase 2, you'll not be able to even scratch the surface if you do that, right? So it will be defeating in nature, because then if you clear phase 1, you'll not be able to attempt much in phase 2. But we cannot also do that we study everything of phase 2, everything of phase 1, right? So we cannot do that because time is limited. Therefore, we'll have to be smart enough to choose in a priority order, in an order where our scores are also maximized. Okay. Also, we'll have to give priority to some activities first and some activities later on. Not because they are more important, but because that's the way it would give you more benefit, as well as time is limited. Okay. Now, in all of these, the assumption is that on an average, you will have around 40 hours approximately, 10% here and there, but 40 hours study time per week, right? Which translates merely about 5-6 hours per day, which I think is something which an exam like this should deserve. If you have gone through the phase 1 plan, you know that after the first days are over, what we have done is that almost 50 to 60% of your day would be going after the first 10 days to phase 1, and the rest 40 to 50% of the time would go to phase 2, right? So what to do in that 40 to 50% of the time till phase 1 for phase 2, we will discuss. And what to do about the 100% of the time that I will get after phase 1, we will discuss both of these things topic wise. Okay. So let's start with the English Descriptive. Now, English Descriptive, let's first look at how does the English Descriptive look like in your course. Okay. So let me show you the Meritshine portal. Here you get in, and when you get in, you go to My Enrollments, and in there, phase 2 course. Now, this is phase 2 course. Now, in phase 2 course, English Descriptive, you have the is English descriptive? Yeah, here 13 number section English descriptive module. Now look at here. So there are lectures and then you have some assignments. Then there are again lectures and then again assignments, right? So total 16 lessons are there up till now on English descriptive, right? So some are lectures, some are assignments, total 6 lectures plus some additional lectures and around 5 assignments. So what do we do with these? First, now lectures, you have 6 currently and 4 to 5 would be given to you after phase 1. Okay, let me come on the screen. So 6 lectures you have currently, plus there are 2-3 additional lectures also, which would be short lectures, just to, give you some additional data. So they can be included in that 6 only, 6 plus another 2, let's say. And there is a plan of 4 to 5 lectures that I am going to deliver after phase 1 to get a short revision done, to get you working on them, right? So because, after phase 1, when in phase 2, you would be going for English descriptive, there will be a lot of stuff that you might not be doing right. So I'll guide in some regular intervals from phase 1 to phase 2 so that you are getting the best out of yourself. Okay. Now these are the lectures. Now you need to give 2 to 3 hours a week for this till phase 1. 2 to 3 hours a week. Bas, that's it. Achha, what do you do in that? See, before phase 1, you need to do 1 lecture every week and 2 to 3 writing activities every week. Now, where do you get the writing activities? From the assignment. I showed you, assignments are there. So, from the assignments, take the writing activity and do, there are maybe 10 writing assignment or 15 writing assignment in, or activities in 1 assignment. So, just take 2 to 3 out of them and do that. Okay. 1 lecture, 2 to 3. So, 1 lecture would take you 1.5 hours and writing activity 3 should take you 1 hour. So, 2 to 3 hours. Perfect. Take. Then, after phase 1. So, this is what it would do. English descriptive would get you started in descriptive. You will have an idea of how to write. From the lectures also, you will get an idea that how your written piece looks like. Okay. All of these things would happen. But obviously, the majority of the practice would happen after phase 1. But what this would ensure is that before phase 1 only, all of the lectures that has been done till now, those 6 plus 2-3 extra lectures, those reinforcement lectures, those are done. So, after phase 1, what you would be needed to do is 1 hour writing activity at least 3 days in a week, 3 days in a week, alternate day maybe, plus attending the new lectures that I would give to you. Plus, I would be conducting activities of writing in the group, some of which I would evaluate, right? So, you should be participating in them because when you participate in them, you would get feedback, you will know what are the mistakes that you're committing and then you can work on them. So, this is what you should be doing after phase 1 in English descriptive. Okay. And take the activities from the assignments, I already told you. So, this was English descriptive. Clean, simple plan. That's why we took English descriptive first, because it's a simple plan. If you want, you can follow this plan. And English descriptive is 100 marks, right? So, we should give it its due importance. But yes, you do not need to give it as much time as ESI or finance or management. Because once you are in the groove of practicing, you'll be able to do a lot of stuff that you want from yourself in English descriptive and get good marks from it. Okay, right? So now, English descriptive done. Now, let's move on to management. Now, management, let me show you the lectures, the arrangement of management, then I'll come back to this. Again, let me move out from the screen. So, where is management, my dear friends? Let me show you. See, there are 2 important areas of management. Management module 12 and Dawn management 14. Dawn management is for descriptive management and management module is for concepts, objective questions and tests, all of those stuff. So, there are 82 lessons there. You might think 82 lessons, how do we do it? Don't worry. I would give you a way to handle this. Okay. Now, in the module, you would say there are lectures, there are, lectures and then there are chapters, there are lectures, this way. Now, when you have these lectures and chapters and then tests, how do you understand which one to do, which one is more important? That is something that I would tell you. And these are the sign of lectures and these are the sign of PDFs. Okay. So now let me come back and show that to you. Let me also show once and for all how the dawn management would look like. See, in dawn management, there are lectures, introduction is there, then lectures, and then there are topics. I have given in the lecture a demo of 2-3 topics and showed you how to write, right? And then and topics of writing, questions on each topic I have given. Then again lectures. Okay. So you have topics, you have the lectures. Now you just need to go through the lectures and write on the topics. But not as of now if you are starting at this point. Now understand, this is for those people who are starting at this point or who has not done a lot at this juncture. Those who are in the revision stage, they obviously can do it. Okay. Now coming back. This is the overall structure. Concept and objective test lectures 50 and dawn management lectures with introduction lecture 11 lectures, not 10, 11 lectures. Now, first let me tell you, introduction lectures of whether management or finance or, English descriptive, these you can do in the next 10 days, the 10 days where you are focusing on phase 1. At that time you would get. So what would happen that you will have an idea about how to focus on these individual areas. Okay. So that would give you a clarity about what is going to come. So introduction lectures, when I say that focus on phase 1 for the first 10 days, that does not include the introduction lecture. If you can manage time, you should definitely go through the introduction lectures. Okay. Now having said that, how do I decide which to do first and which to do later on? Because this is clear, na? All topics do not have same importance in the exam. Now, how do I understand the importance in exam? Just like what I did in phase 1, I am going to do this for you in phase 2 management also. That what are the priority of topics? I'll give you the priority of topics. So you should start with those priority of topics. So introduction to management is the first priority. So the module introduction to management has 6 lectures. 5 lectures are concept building lectures with some class test pitched in, and 1 lecture, the last lecture, is the topic test of introduction to management. Okay. So that's the first priority. Second priority is leadership. There are 5 lectures, 4 lectures on concept, 4 lectures on concept, and 1 lecture on test. Okay. Then communication, 3 lectures on concept, 1 lecture on test. I'll tell you why am I dividing the test and the concept lectures. Ethics is the next priority, 3 lectures on concept, 1 lecture on test. Organization behavior, 3 lectures on concept and 1 lecture on topic test. Then miscellaneous theories, there are 7 lectures. Okay. And HR and motivation, 8 lectures on concept and 2 lectures on test. Governance, there are 3 lectures, but for you only governance 1 is relevant because you guys have just started. So for the next 2 lectures, what has been covered would also be covered in more detail in the finance lectures. So because you have time constraint, watch the finance governance lectures for those areas. You will have better idea. Okay. So governance 1 is important from management perspective, but governance 2 and 3 you can leave because you have less time. Okay. Then, so now these are over. So why I have differentiated? Let me show that to you. You have to give precedence to concept lectures first. Start the test lectures, both topic wise as well as revision after phase 1. There are some revision lectures also because these would total out to around 43 lectures. There are 7 revision, total revision lectures. Okay. Those and the topic wise revision, these are to be done after phase 1, not before phase 1. Does that mean that you will be able to do all of these before phase 1? No, that is also not possible. How much is possible within that 40 hours of time frame? I'll tell you. Okay. So your priority should be first do the 5 lectures of intro management, then leadership, then communication. Don't in the order of your lectures, it is HR and motivation, but don't do that. Do communication, then ethics, then organizational behavior, right? And then miscellaneous theory, 7 lectures, do them. Okay. And at the end, do HR motivation and governance 1 lecture. So this would complete your set. So how many concept lectures you would be needed to do? 9, 12, 15, 18, 25, 33, 36 total concept lecture. But essentially, if you see, if you look at the overall concept, a lot of these concepts would be also covered in introduction to management. Okay. So let's say it should not happen, but let's say still you are not able to go beyond this, then also you would ensure that you have covered 70 to 75% of the course from the concept building portion. So your chances of getting good marks in management increases. Okay? Right. That's why I have prioritized. No one would do this for you. I have done this for you so that you get the best possibility of scoring from the exam, because your primary target is to score in the exam now. So how we have decided on the priority? We have decided on the priority on the basis of the past few years exam. Now you can ask me, ki sir, fir bhi risk to hai na? There is a risk na that if questions come more from motivation and governance. Yes, there risk could be there, but still the questions from motivation and HR and governance, and I'm not saying that you would not cover motivation in introduction to management. There would be introduction management and leadership. There would be areas where you would cover motivation. But still there can be, areas. Let's say if you are not able, I'm not saying that you should be doing that, but if you are not able to cover beyond this, till this you will be very easily covering if you follow my instruction. But let's say if you are not able to cover beyond this, but still you would be able to answer at least 80%, 85% of the questions. So that would be enough for you if the other areas are okay. So till phase 1, how much do you need to give as time? Weekly 3 to 4 lectures with bullet notes. Bullet notes means that don't make lamba, long notes. No, those are already there with you after the lectures. Now, you may ask that, sir, lecture, once I have gone through the lecture, should I go through the notes also? In management, let me talk about it. For every topic, it would be different. For finance, it would be different. For ESI, it would be different. But in management, go through the lecture and make your own notes. Okay. If it is necessary and you want to go into more detail of a particular area because you have not understood, go to the notes and refer to that, but don't go through the full notes. Okay. Because that would not be, that would be double work for you. Okay. At this stage. So weekly 3 to 4 lectures with bullet notes, 6 hours weekly till phase 1. This is after those 10 days. If you give 6 hours weekly till phase 1 for management, that would ensure what? 3 to 4 lectures every week. So you have around 10 to 11 weeks, right? So you'll be done with 44 lectures. Even with a, average, 3.5, you'll be done with 40 lectures. So 40 lectures you will be done with, your whole concepts would be done. Including this, everything would be done, right? And after phase 1, you should be concentrating on descriptive, no descriptive till then, right? Neither in management, finance and ESI, Ravi sir would tell you on finance and ESI also, don't focus on descriptive, because descriptive you will be only able to write once you know about the things that you are writing, na? So, this period would make you prepared for that. Okay. Now, after phase 1 for concepts, take tests and revise. And if you have some remaining lectures, do them. So, even after phase 1 for management, you will not be needed to give more than 6 to 8 hours weekly. Because there would be lectures would be there, na? Non-management lectures would be there. You'll have to attend them, right? Even if no lecture remains for the concepts of management, but non-management lectures would be there, na? So 6 to 8 hours at the max. And after phase 1 also, like I said, start dawn, attend the lectures and write 2 answers every alternate day. So I have, then without dawn management, this would not exceed 6 hours. Plus 2 to 3 hours of dawn management. So total it should be 8 hours. I calculated it wrongly. Because if you are done sincerely till this much, then you would not take more than 6 hours for concepts and test taking. And for descriptive another 2 to 3 hours. So total 8 hours, bas, not more than that. So after phase 1, start dawn, attend the lectures, write 2 answers every alternate day. 2 answers, 45 minutes. So 3 days, 2 hours or 2 hour 15 minutes at the max. ठीक है, तो that is the time that you would be needed to give to descriptive. अच्छा, if you are writing 6 activities, अच्छा, where from to write? You will have to write from the topics that has been given to you. I showed you, I have given the topics also. So if you write 6, in 3-4 weeks you will be writing around 24. So 20 to 24 topics you must have written. So that would be more than enough to give you that practice to write well in the exam. Obviously, if you have more time and you can do more, that you are always welcome to do that. Okay, right. So that was management. Clear? Descriptive writing clear? Management clear? As you can see that, just one thing before I end, that as you can see, that this is something that is possible if you plan it well. So your schedule should be based on this study plan. Okay. Once you are clear about all the areas, the finance, ESI, management and descriptive, make a study plan to fit the time schedule that we have given you. Okay. So now over to Ravi sir.
Right, now that you've got a detailed understanding of how you should approach the descriptive section as far as English is concerned, which has a significant weightage of 100 marks, and then of course you've discussed management as well with the help of Ratnabha sir. What we're going to try and decipher over the next couple of segments is basically look at how to address finance and of course the bigger element in terms of ESI as well. Of course, finance and management combined to basically form one paper, and of course the weightage exactly hasn't been 50-50. It has been some years it's been higher on the management side, many years it's been higher on the finance side. In fact, last year finance had a higher weightage as compared to management. So the trend obviously depends on what kind of questions RBI wants to put in those set of questions as well. And since now you have a descriptive as well as an objective segment, it's difficult for them to exactly give a 50-50 as far as management and finance is concerned. So there may obviously be up and down in that context. So what we're going to try and understand right now is how do you exactly look at approaching the finance segment right now. So the first thing that I'm trying to talk about is that you obviously have a set of concept lectures that are there. So obviously there are 3 modules that are there in terms of financial systems, then you have financial markets, and of course you have your general topics as well. And the brackets basically indicates the number of lectures that are there in these at this point of time. And again, I'm using the Meritshine course as the base reference for you guys to try and understand from this perspective. Apart from that, of course, we have another thing which is called as your DAWN, which is your descriptive answer writing naturally. And here again, we have basically certain finance lectures that are there to the tune of 7 lectures that have been given over here. So obviously the first lecture is more an introduction as to how you can look to generate content, how you can look to generate data, what are the important aspects of a structure, what are the important aspects like, let's say, an introduction, body, conclusion. All these elements have been addressed in this particular set of sessions, right? And of course, there have been a lot of demo writing sessions also been conducted over there, which gives you a base of how to look at approaching the descriptive writing as far as finance is concerned. Now, moving further from that, you also have what we know as the CBFA or your current banking and financial affairs. So basically here again, you look at it, there are over 50 plus lectures. Don't get hassled by it. Of course, we've been doing a lot of lectures and we've covered a lot of data right from February 2021 itself, right? So there's a huge repository of data available that you can actually look through. But when you look at it from the perspective of notes, and this is again a very important segment that you need to understand here, right? So because there is so much of, content to be covered, you've got to be very judicious about the utility of time at this point of time. And I keep talking about the return on time invested. So what you should be having as an approach, a basic approach as far as both finance as well as ESI is concerned, is to basically look at identifying the videos which are an absolute must for you to watch, right? And then you should basically look at using notes as the first starting point. And if you find that the notes itself are not enough, or you're not able to understanding a particular concept, then you go back to the video and refer the base video. Now, why am I suggesting that at this point of time? Because obviously of the limitation of time that is there in front of us, right? There's very limited time available. So you have to optimize whatever best we can do. Of course, if you had taken a full year course, then we could have definitely gone with the video first and then moved on to the notes. And that luxury, of course, is available for those who had actually taken the course, let's say a year back. But for those of you who have recently joined, or for those of you who had joined earlier but have not really done anything constructive so far, the approach will be that you look at the notes first, right? And wherever you feel the need that you have to look at a particular lecture, they go back and look at the video and then come back to the notes. That is the primary approach that will be there. Of course, there will be certain videos that I would definitely recommend to you guys, which if watched, it can actually help, speed up the learning process for you guys, right? From a CBFA standpoint, the main thing that I'm looking at is you basically look at covering the 13 plus notes that are there. These are monthly notes. So when I say 13 plus, it means that we're basically looking at from February till March. It's a monthly set of notes that are available. Of course, again, a priority has to be set in wherein you look at going in the reverse direction. So let's say, for example, March would be uploaded in, let's say, another week's time. So you basically go back, let's say March, February, January, you cover 2022. Then you go back another 3 months and look at, let's say, December, November, October, right? And then of course, you obviously move on to April, and then maybe go back a couple of months to, let's say, a September and a July. I don't think beyond July would be required. And again, the number of months you go back actually depends on how well you have actually prepared for these 6-8 months. So the most crucial months are basically right from your October till May as far as your phase 1 is concerned, and of course till June as far as your phase 2 is concerned. So that is the context with which you have to approach this. So you'll have enough number of lecture notes for you to target. Right. So the context should be that you refer the lecture notes, and wherever you find that there is some doubt or some concept not getting cleared, at that point of time, you can always go back to the video and watch it. But here the approach has to be notes first. And if there is a doubt, go to the lecture. Next thing that I'm talking about is basically you have what is called as your one concept a day. And there are such 21 such concepts that have been covered over a 3-week period. And of course, you can look at these concepts again, quickly read through them, and again attempt the questions that are given there. So again, the thought process is that this should basically be approached in the month of June, just before phase 2. And this is not something that is required immediately at the point of phase 1. So you can basically write it as phase 2 at this point of time. And if you look at it in June, that will be good enough. It will not take much of your time, because these are like quick notes on fundamental concepts along with some MCQ questions for them as well. The next thing that I'm talking about is an important set of sessions, right? Especially in the context of, let's say, understanding concepts like time value of money, the securities market, and let's say even financial ratios for that matter. And of course, some bit of information on the front of how the RBI operates and some terms from that perspective as well. Now, what I would recommend is that, see, this finance deep dive, there are 10 sessions that are there. I would not recommend you to watch all those sessions. So primarily the first session may be around the time value of money, that will be relevant for you guys, and maybe one session on ratios, that should be good enough. And of course, you can refer these sessions once, let's say, there's enough time available. Another important recommendation that I would give at this point of time is you're talking about notes first and then the videos, because of the paucity of time that is available with us. And the second aspect is look at speeding up, right? So for example, if you're okay, then you can basically look at the videos at a 1.5x or even a 2x if that works for you, because again, as I said, time is of the essence for us and we cannot afford to waste unwanted time, right? So if you're able to understand, the most important aspect is understanding. If you're able to understand well at a fast pace through notes, through let's say 1.5x or 2x, then that is the best utilization of time. Of course, if you cannot understand that, then obviously you'll have to slow down and watch the video. But that's what I would recommend. And in fact, let's say for the sessions that are there on the FBO front, which basically refers to for the benefit of oneself. So these are more fundamental sessions on, let's say the RBI and how it essentially operates. And these are basic lectures that are recommended for anyone who's starting the course. So if you're someone who does not have very strong basics, then these 3 videos is again something that I can recommend to you guys. But again, watch it at a faster pace. That is what will be required. Now, moving further ahead, another important aspect is the module test. So again, this is not something that is going to be recommended immediately at this stage. This is going to be looked at after phase 1 is done, right? So you have 1 test in module A, there are 2 tests in module C, and there is 1 test in module B. So essentially, financial systems has 1 test for your financial markets, and there are 2 tests for your general topics, obviously because number of topics is more. So those tests are also available, which you can definitely look at taking, but after phase 1 is done, because right now it doesn't make sense. Right now it's more important to cover concepts and look at phase 1. The next thing that I'm talking about is the priority of the topics as far as your concepts are concerned, right? So what we'll do here is that I'll basically show you what are the segments that are there. Financial systems is there. There are 8 lectures, as I told you earlier. I would recommend that you should watch at least 3 to 4 lectures. Right? Not all 8 are required, but at least 3 to 4 is something that you should look at watching. Then in general topics, again, there are 20 odd lectures that are there. But of course, what I recommend is watching 3 to 4 lectures. I'll talk about which lectures you should actually be looking at concentrating at this point of time. What are the priority sessions for you guys? And similarly, as far as financial markets is concerned, because it requires a slightly more in-depth understanding, out of the 11 total lectures that are there, you may look to watch at least 4 to 5 of them. And of course, if time permits, then you should look at definitely watching more of these lectures, right? So what I'll do now is move myself away from the screen and take you to a screen which basically shows you the importance of topics. And obviously in the earlier part of the session, Ratnabha sir has already shown you the way to approach the course portal itself. So I'm not going to go into the course portal now. What I'll try and tell you is the relevance of the topics and the importance of them in the context of the finance segment first, and then we will move to ESI. So when I look at it from the context of the previous exam, right, when I look at the panel year 2021, so you basically had banking system in India having the highest weightage. Again, the context was because there was a one big 15-mark question that was there, and of course there were two 2 marks and one 1 mark as well. So there was a significant weightage for banking systems in India, and there are 5 lectures in the course. So the objective would be that in these kind of conditions, you would not want to watch every single lecture that is there. So you basically look at, let's say, the introductory lecture for that particular topic. For example, banking system in India, you watch the first lecture, that itself clears certain concepts for you, and you know the thought process of what has been taught, right? And then subsequently, the next set of lectures, you can actually refer the notes, and if at all there is a doubt, you can go back to the video. So that is the context. So basically, the approach that I would recommend at this point of time is that banking system in India has basically 5 videos. You look at watching maybe 1 or 2 of them. Then the next important segment is basically corporate governance. Again, there was one 15-mark question, but if you look at the trend of corporate governance over the years in the past as well, it has had a significant weightage over the years as well. So from that perspective, again, corporate governance is important. So there are 4 lectures. Again, the more important ones to concentrate is maybe the first lecture, and then you look at the lectures on the banking side of things, right? So how things have evolved from the banking perspective. So those sessions become important. Couple of sessions on risk management. Again, it has been a subject or area of very high importance over the years as well. So that means risk. Both the videos I would definitely recommend you guys to watch because it covers the Basel norms and all the fundamentals from that perspective also. Then again, union budget is something which is very relevant and important, and every year it gets covered. So there is obviously one holistic lecture on union budget covering this year's budget itself. And why am I written 1+ here? Because union budget gets covered as far as the ESI section is also concerned. So from there also you can cover that. Then financial markets, of course, has had a significant weightage last year. And of course, that weightage has been significantly there in the previous years as well, right? So this is again an important area, an important segment. There are 9 videos specifically in this segment, but what I would recommend is at least watch the initial videos of each of the topics. For example, when I say initial videos, for example, 3 to 4 videos are dedicated on derivatives itself. So try and watch, let's see, at least one of those videos so that the remaining 3 can be actually picked up from the notes. Similarly, you talk about money markets. So at least watch one video on money markets. Similarly, at least watch one video on FX markets, right? So from that perspective, you basically look at covering at least the initial introductory videos in each of the segments of financial markets, and the next one can be looked at from the perspective of the notes itself, right? Similarly, you talk about again an important area last year which was seen was e-governance, and again there's a lot of development that is constantly happening on this front as well. And e-governance in a way is also interrelated with your financial inclusion as well. So a lot of things that are happening in financial inclusion have an important interlinkage with e-governance as well. So these 2 topics are interlinked in that context. So there are 2 lectures on e-governance and 3 lectures on financial inclusion. Again, you can look at watching the introductory lectures and then move on to the notes from there. Similarly, Triple P, I don't think you'll need to watch the lectures. So you basically can directly refer to the notes. There are 2 lectures there. Again, FinTech has 4 lectures, which is a very important topic in the context of how things are evolving from the RBI standpoint. So again, there are 4 lectures there, but you can again look at maybe the first lecture, and the rest 3 can be focused from the perspective of the notes itself, right? Now, there are 2 segments which I would definitely recommend you guys to watch. One is your globalization and international banking, and second is financial crisis, right? So it's important to understand both these topics so that anything that is getting covered from a current affairs standpoint in the CBFA sessions, or let's say the CNCA session, which we'll be discussing in the economics and social issue segment, those sessions will become more meaningful for you if you understand the basics here, right? So these 4 lectures are something which I will definitely recommend you guys to watch because it gives you a lot of clarity on the international standpoint, and also talks about how the financial crisis actually panned out as far as the 2008 crisis was concerned, and what was the ramifications from an India standpoint. All of these things get covered here. Then again, there are 3 sessions on alternative sources of finance. Depending on the comfort level, you can either revisit the videos or you can just look at the lecture notes. That way it can be covered. Similarly, financial inclusion also, maybe you can look at the introductory lecture, and the other lectures can basically be picked up from the notes itself. And then again, there is one session in banking system in India which basically talks about the RBI functions as well. And similarly, when we talk about the FBO sessions, there are 3 sessions pertaining to the RBI functions. So again, these would also clear a lot of fundamentals for you. So again, I'm reiterating the point that the way it has to be approached is you have to prioritize, right? So I've already listed here, if you see the number of important topics that are there, right? And the number of lectures that are also given there. So the way it has to be looked at is prioritize the important topics and look at their lectures, and again look at their lectures which basically clear your concepts. So the first approach has to be towards understanding. Now, If you feel that just reading the notes itself is giving you good enough understanding, absolutely fine. But if you feel that you need to watch the video, then of course you have to move beyond the notes as well. So that is the way it has to be approached, so that your fundamentals get very clear at this point of time. And that is the most important aspect, right? So this is the recommendation as far as the overall prioritization in finance is concerned. Now let's quickly move back to the previous slide and understand certain more important aspects. Right, so when I talk about the further elements here, right, so firstly that important thing, as I said, is first to do the concept lectures. That is the most important aspect. Again, combination of notes and lectures, more notes and less lectures, because that can save you a bit of time at this juncture, right? And of course, after phase 1 is done, then you look at the individual module tests as well, so that it, jogs your memory in terms of the fundamental concepts. And again, after phase 1 is when you look at your OCADS piece as well. So that again gets prioritization after the phase 1 is completed. So OCADs get done at that point of time. And again, your module tests also get done at that point of time. Now coming to DAWN, again, descriptive answer writing naturally in the context of finance. Since Ratnabha sir has already introduced the DAWN as far as your descriptive writing English is concerned, you don't have to specifically spend time on finance and ESI prior to phase 1. I'll tell you the logic behind that. So descriptive skills, descriptive writing skills are getting practiced through descriptive English itself, right? But when you talk about finance and your ESI, the more important aspect rather than just writing is the content, right? So content and generation of good data that can actually be put into your answers is also very, very important as far as finance and ESI is concerned. So from that perspective, it becomes very, very important for you to gather good data points. And that is what you need to focus on before the end of phase 1, wherein as far as descriptive writing is concerned, you have to look at gathering data points, and that is very important, right? So coming to what is expected. So till phase 1, you're basically looking at weekly 3 to 4 lectures and bullet notes, right? So when you look at 3 to 4 lectures from a weekly standpoint, so you're essentially saying that technically it is possible for you to cover 32 such lectures, right? And of course, that is not the number that I'm recommending you to watch. If you are happy with watching lesser number of lectures and understanding through the notes, that's the best possible strategy. But given the time that is available, you can actually look at dedicating this much amount of time, and it can allow you to watch 32 lectures. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Right? And basically what we're looking at in terms of timelines is around 5 to 6 hours from a weekly basis till phase 1. So roughly around 1 hour. Now it's up to you whether you want to slot it at a individual day level, or you want to basically club 2 hours together on a particular day of the week and push it on together. It's entirely up to you at this point of time. So basically what I'm saying is 5 to 6 hours weekly till phase 1 gets done, right? And the next aspect is that when you talk about till phase 1, right, what is the most important aspect here? So here, the most important aspect is that you have to definitely spend a lot of time on CBFA, right? And they've got to also look at the current and contemporary affairs. This is a very critical portion in ESI, which I will discuss in just about a few minutes. But till phase 1, what you're looking at is covering these concept lectures, right? And these notes that I was talking about, right, from a CBFA perspective, and of course the sessions that I'm talking about from a C&CA standpoint, these have to be used to basically gather your data points as far as finance is concerned. And trust me, there will be a lot of data points that will actually come across, and not only data points, this will also help you in preparing for your MCQs as well. Understand one thing, as far as finance is concerned, it's a mix of both static as well as current affairs. Right? So a limited portion comes under static, a lot of portion again comes under current affairs. A lot of static that is getting asked is also linked to the current affairs itself, right? So from that perspective, the CBFA is the one thing which is really going to help you in terms of preparing your current affairs from a finance standpoint. And even from a C&CA standpoint, current and contemporary affairs, why am I including an ESI related portion in finance? The reason for that is that it's very difficult to extricate or separate finance and economics. Right? Because both of these are so intertwined with each other that sometimes when you read economics, it will kind of feel like you're reading for finance as well. And sometimes when you're reading finance, you might actually feel that you're actually preparing for ESI. So that is the kind of deep, intricate relationship between these two subjects, which is why your CBFA and your C&CA sessions both are going to help you as far as gathering data points is concerned, and also for preparing for your objective type questions as well in phase 2, right? And of course, we've talked about CBFA being extremely relevant from a phase 1 perspective as well, right? So if you've watched the previous video which we discussed in terms of phase 1, there also your CBFA becomes very important. So if you've not watched that video for phase 1, the link is there in the description. So this is the strategy till phase 1, right? And again, what we're saying is around 2 hours weekly till phase 1 needs to be given from the perspective of gathering data points. Now, the way I would want to split it is at least spend 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes each day on, let's say, looking at the CBF phase. Now, this has to be done in addition to whatever you're doing for your GA sessions, right? So GA sessions, again, you'll obviously be making your own set of notes there as well. But here, it's not just for GA, but it's also for phase 2. Right? So the way you want to figure it out entirely, it's your call. So when you're preparing for GA, you may decide to dedicate 15 minutes more for gathering data points, right? So we talked about, let's say, spending an hour on GA every single day, right? So let's say you're spending an hour on GA and plus an additional 15 minutes, maybe looking at one particular CBFA lecture note or one particular CA lecture note and gathering some data points from there and adding it to your scheme of things. So that is what is expected. So 15 minutes roughly per day is what I would recommend. Maybe even 20 minutes if you're looking at it from that perspective, but roughly 2 hours is what I'm saying till phase 1, so that by the end of phase 1, you've gathered so many data points across different topics that it can actually help you collate a lot of data. Now, the most important aspect here to understand is how do I look at taking my notes, right? This becomes very, very crucial. So the approach that I would recommend is, for example, if I talk about fintech, fintech is obviously covered in the conceptual lectures as well. And fintech obviously has a lot of current things happening in the news as well, right? So there are a lot of latest developments that are happening from the perspective of CBDC and let's say talk about many other relevant angles from that perspective, the taxation on Bitcoins and so many other things that are there, right? So basically the thought process is you make your concept notes on fintech, right? Again, when I say concept notes, make very crisp bullet notes wherein you're basically not writing complete sentences because it's just going to waste your time, right? This kind of notes are going to be so crisp that it is possible for you to revise that particular chapter in less than 5 to 10 minutes one day prior to the examination. That has to be the objective, right? So the way you take these notes is very simple. You basically have very short bullet points and that is how you prepare your concept notes. And after the concept notes, maybe dedicate, let's say 2 or 3 pages for fintech itself, wherein you jot down any news item, any particular new data point that is coming out from a fintech standpoint, and you basically plug it into that particular notes itself so that your current as well as your concepts are interlinked and brought at the same place, and that way you'll be able to remember things a lot better, right? I hope note making is very clear, and that is what I expect you to do 2 hours every week till the time phase 1 gets completed. So by the time you're done with phase 1, you would have had significant amount of data, significant amount of understanding in concepts, and this basically will be used after phase 1 in terms of your descriptive writing sessions as well. Point is very simple as far as finance and ESI is concerned, that till the time you have good content, till the time you have good data, you'll never be able to write great answers, right? So till phase 1, the practice as far as descriptive writing is concerned is purely from a descriptive English perspective. उससे आपकी writing practice होती रहेगी, and phase 1 के पहले हम concentrate करेंगे finance में to gather as much content, gather as many data points as possible. So that when we start answering descriptive answers post phase 1, you will have all the data that you need to plug into your answers. That is the objective. And the next important aspect is that after phase 1, essentially from a concept standpoint, obviously you will take the module tests and you will basically revise, and you will take the OCAD tests and you will revise those as well. And what is expected is that you basically attend all the VAR sessions that will be happening. So VAR essentially refers to your value adds and revision. So all of these sessions will basically start happening at that point of time, and it will give you a lot of, let's say, revision practice in terms of a lot of things that are there. And of course, you'll have descriptive writing practice as well that will happen at that point of time, right? And again, what is expected is that you refer the remaining lectures that are there, if any. And when I say remaining lectures, if any, whatever you could not cover before phase 1 as per the prioritization schedule that I've just mentioned, you have to basically look at covering these during that particular point of time. So what is the expectation after phase 1? You're looking at roughly weekly, looking at a 9 to 10 hours kind of a time frame. Of course, if you can give more, great, but at least 9 to 10 hours would be expected from you from a finance perspective. Next thing that you're looking at is basically after phase 1, in terms of descriptive, you obviously have to attend the remaining lectures from the perspective of, let's say, if there is anything else from a dawn standpoint for finance that is basically recorded and presented to you guys. You have to look at those dawn lectures as well, which is nothing but descriptive answer writing naturally, and you're looking at finance particularly. And you're also going to be looking at basically writing 2 answers every alternate day, right? So when I say 2 answers every alternate day, where are the questions going to come from? So there is a compendium that has been shared with you in terms of descriptive questions across all the separate segments and all the separate chapters in finance. So you have to look at targeting those descriptive questions and basically ensure that you practice at least 2 of them every alternate day. And again, the expectation there would be weekly 3 to 4 hours. Again, the context is that you have to understand when I say weekly 3 to 4 hours from this perspective, this is basically a consolidated time that is given for your descriptive answer writing, right? So this includes the, let's say, the alternate day activities that you will have for management, the alternate day activities you will have for finance, and the alternate day activities that you will have for ESI as well. So essentially weekly 3 to 4 hours essentially means that roughly you're looking at 45 minutes to 1 hour every day in terms of writing descriptive answers. So that basically covers what I want to discuss from the perspective of finance as to how it has to be prioritized, how it has to be approached over the next 2 months and the month after that. Now let's quickly try and spend time on understanding the ESI angle as well. So when I say from the ESI perspective, what are the critical elements that you're looking at? First thing, the paper has been predominantly driven by your current affairs historically, right? So, and that is where your current affairs become very, very important to cover, right? So here we have dedicated segments, and again, I'm going to talk in the context of the Meritshine course so that it becomes easier for you to understand what exactly needs to be covered. So the first thing is that you have a module on I&R, which talks about your indices and reports. And again, it's a very crucial segment because it covers all the indices and reports that are of importance and require you to basically spend some amount of time in understanding those reports, understanding the technical jargon from that perspective. And also when I talk about I&R, it also covers important segments of the syllabus like your regional economic cooperation, your international bodies like your World Bank, IMF, the reports that they have generated, IBRD, right? So all of these guys, your World Economic Outlook, your World Development Report, and all the reports that have been generated by the RBI as well, the trends and analysis of banking. Then you talk about the RBI annual report. So many such reports are getting covered, and also talking about, let's say, what are the challenges from the international standpoint, international issues, climate change, even things like your environment, right, and your sustainability. All of those things are also getting covered in the indices and reports segment. So from that perspective, a very, very, very important segment that you should definitely focus on. The other thing which you cannot be lax on is basically schemes. Now, schemes is important from two perspectives. One, it also appears in the form of questions in phase 1, and it's also appeared in the form of questions in phase 2 as well, right? So even though the phase 1 related questions, we are covering them quite holistically as far as the GA compendium is concerned, month-on-month GA compendium that you'll be preparing, it covers your phase 1 level GA questions. But for phase 2, it requires a slightly more in-depth understanding. So one thing which you have to understand from the perspective of RBI, especially in the context of what they've done in ESI, is they've done something called as a cluster bombing. So when I say cluster bombing, what happens? They just pick up one report and bombard you with, let's say, 3-4 questions from there, right? And that is the issue. So the point is, the syllabus is vast, but because there is limited scope in terms of asking, so what they generally tend to do is pick out 2-3 reports and they just bombard questions from there. But of course, it will be like gambling for us if we just let go of every other report and just focus on those 2-3 reports, because we can't say, because last year the report that actually came was a very unknown kind of a report, especially unknown in the context of expectation ki usme se questions aayenge. So it was the OECD report that basically came out last year, right? And there were so many other important and more relevant reports that were there, but there were no questions from there, right? So it's very difficult to predict as to what report the RBI will be focusing on. So it does not really matter whether you're talking about any report. It's important that you understand that report in depth, so that in case a cluster bombing happens by RBI, which is a general tendency for them to do, wherein they just bombard you with questions from one particular scheme, one particular report, you should know that report or that scheme in depth so that you can answer those questions, right? Because it's very difficult to pick and choose and say that मैं यही scheme पढ़ के जाऊंगा, यही scheme पढ़ के जाऊंगी और इसी में से question आएगा, ऐसा बोलना बहुत मुश्किल है. It's very difficult to say that. But the point is, if you are going in depth, right, and going in depth in many of those reports and schemes, that is how you can ensure maximum possible coverage, right? The next thing that the RBI tends to focus definitely is on basically the RBI measures and the notifications. So again here, what becomes important for us to cover is the CBFA, and within the CBFA there is a specific segment which we call as the regulator rules the roost. And this segment covers everything that is to be covered for that particular month from the perspective of the RBI, right? Whatever actions the RBI has taken, fines imposed, monetary policy committee meeting and the updates that have been discussed there, and any kind of notification or report that has come out from the RBI, all of these things get definitely covered from that standpoint, right? The next thing that becomes important is basically covering the core concepts again in ESI. Now, the reason why the coverage of core concepts is important is that when you're reading a lot of these current related topics, right? So it's important that you have some understanding of fundamentals so that it becomes easier to understand the current affairs. Now, if you don't understand the fundamentals, understanding current affairs will be a little difficult, right? Having said that, it is entirely your call. If you feel that you're fairly good enough in terms of fundamentals, in terms of concepts, you can directly move into the current affairs aspects of ESI, because ESI, as compared to finance, has an even more higher weightage of current affairs as compared to the static portion. So from that perspective, you can look at watching the core concepts, but specific set of videos, but not every single video, right? So again, the approach that I would recommend here is you go by the notes first, right? If you understand the notes very clearly, then of course, there's no need for you to go back and visit that particular lecture. If let's say you feel that the notes are not enough, then of course you do need to visit that particular lecture. And of course, again, the recommendation there is watch it at let's say 1.5x or a 2x kind of a speed so that you can actually run through that lecture fast and the concept gets internalized. That is the objective. This is basically one of the modules which is core concepts. There are 19 plus lectures on this. Then again, there is one particular segment wherein I say polity and sociology. Now, why do I write 19 plus 2 plus? Because again, there'll be some current elements that might actually come into the picture. And maybe you might find that some additional videos get added in the next 15 days or so. But again, these videos are more from a conceptual understanding standpoint, and they will help you build a stronger base as far as ESI is concerned, right? That is where I've written plus over here. So again, core concepts, 19 plus videos are there. Again, not expecting you to watch all of them, but you're expected to definitely watch some of them. And again, polity and sociology, you're basically having notes from that perspective. So if you look at those notes, a lot of fundamental topics will basically get covered from there itself. And you also have economic history, policies, reforms, and others. So this has 5 plus videos, again, talking from the perspective of the history of how the evolution of economics has happened from the India context, the British rule, and then forward from there. Then you talk about the various policies, industrial and labor policy, all that gets covered here. Then you talk about the various reforms that have happened, right? So all of those, exim policy, trade-related policies, all of those things are basically covered in this segment. And of course, anything that we feel as important from the perspective of the syllabus will get actually added in this particular segment itself. So again, this has 5 plus videos that are there. Moving on to another very important segment, which I discussed earlier as well, which is basically your schemes in the governing news, and we call it signs, right? And again, there are 5 plus lectures in that. Again, when I say 5 plus, more lectures will get added in let's say the subsequent weeks and months. The thought process here is that you have to try and cover schemes holistically, especially the ones which are, let's say, in the news. And of course, you have to also go to look at covering those schemes which have an allocation of, let's say, 500 plus crores split across ministries. So all of that actually gets covered. The next thing that you need to look at from this perspective is there is one particular session which basically talks how to navigate our Excel file. This Excel file is like your base, right? This is the fundamental Excel file. You can treat it as a holy granth, the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita. So the context is that this file is the base file which covers all the related information about the different kinds of schemes. So you can play around with that file, tinker with the filters, and basically segregate it ministry wise, segregate it allocation wise, and there's a lot of information about that particular scheme as well. So everything that you need to know about the different schemes that are important is basically covered in this particular Excel file. And this is again a very important file that has to be treated as the base file for you. You don't have to refer any other sources beyond this particular file as long as you're following it to the T. Having said that, of course, we will do let's say a few revision sessions on schemes additionally as well after let's say phase 1. And of course, we'll also be looking to provide scheme related MCQ questions as well, which will help you prepare better by testing you on those schemes. Now, the next thing which we've already discussed quite extensively is basically your indices and reports, which have 5 plus sessions. When I say 5 plus, there'll be more sessions added for the month of April, May and June, because you have to look at covering the reports for March, April, May and June as well. So those reports will also get covered. So you'll have the latest updates from that front. And of course, as I said, from a syllabus standpoint as well, your international organization, your regional economic cooperation, and a lot of those things like economic challenges, issues in the world, all of these things, environment, sustainability, everything is getting addressed in these sessions, right? So I would definitely recommend that you should definitely look at these sessions. Even if you cannot watch these sessions, at least go through the lecture notes, and wherever you feel there is a need to actually go back and refer to that session, you should definitely go ahead and do that, right? The next thing that I'm talking about is basically your current and contemporary affairs. I mentioned this briefly during your finance segment as well, because this is a very important portion as far as gathering those data points is concerned. So a lot of these sessions will deal with specific topics. And of course, these will give you a lot of data points as far as your descriptive answer writing naturally in ESI is concerned. So non-ESI from perspective, a lot of data points will come through these sessions. And of course, you'll find a lot of detailed analysis in this segment in terms of your, let's say things like your economic survey, a far in-depth analysis of economic survey, because it's a very important document as far as the entire ESI and even finance is concerned, because it has a lot of valuable insights. So we've covered economic survey end to end, right? And these sessions can definitely be found in the C&CA segment. The next thing that you're looking at from that perspective is that a lot of current and contemporary affairs will be discussed in these sessions. So once your phase 1 gets done, just like in finance, we talked about the VAR sessions or the value adds and revision sessions, we'll also have a lot of C&CA sessions happening in ESI, which will basically interlink a lot of those current affairs with the syllabus itself, right? So that is what we will try and do in those C&CA sessions post phase 1 as well. But these C&CA sessions that is already there, these are again very important for you to again look at, and the recommendation is again the same. Look at the understanding point of it. If you can basically go through the notes without referring to the lecture, absolutely fine. But what I would recommend is at least watch the initial set of lectures so that you get a hang of how the things are progressing in these sessions. So that becomes very important. That's on C&CA. And again, coming back to schemes. So again, testing yourselves in schemes is very important. So again, from that perspective in OSAD, we have 130 plus schemes covered. So when I say OSAD, it refers to your one scheme a day, right? And that is basically 130 quizzes that have been provided. And those quizzes again provide you a lot of valuable information and insights, and definitely can be a good way for you to practice things at your end. So that becomes very important and crucial. The next thing that you're looking at is what we'll do additionally is that we'll also try and provide your monthly schemes from a quiz perspective in the news, right? So whatever schemes have been in the news from that particular month's standpoint. So we'll try and look at covering the last 6 months. That will be the target for us. Right? When I say last 6 months, so this is relevant from the perspective of phase 2. So we're talking about, let's say from January till June 2022, we will try and cover the schemes on a month-on-month basis and basically jumble up the questions and give a mix of questions for you so that it becomes difficult for you to identify that scheme, because that's how you'll have to be tested in the exam as well, right? So the context is give you questions, but at the same time, at the end of it, you'll find the answers and the relevant points clearly mentioned. So it'll help you kind of jog your memory and revise those schemes as well. Right. Next thing that is important is your GA monthly compendia MCQs. Now, why is this relevant and why am I writing about this in ESI at this point of time? So the MCQs that you basically attempted while clearing phase 1, they will also have a lot of valuable data points as far as schemes is concerned, as far as economics is concerned, as far as finance is concerned. So your GA MCQ compendia, purely from the perspective of phase 2, also becomes equally relevant because there will be questions. So that is where when you're preparing for your phase 1 GA, you have to mark out those questions that are relevant from a phase 2 perspective so that you can basically revise those after phase 1. Right. So phase 1, let's say the compendia on GA is also going to be helping you in phase 2 as well. The next thing that we're talking about is again, overall scheme of things. So first you're looking at doing the concept lectures, right? And then basically move on to the current affairs. That is the focus that you should ideally look at having, right? So at this juncture, what I want to do is again, from a priority standpoint, I want to jump into the kind of questions that have appeared in the last couple of years so that it gives you a sense of how things were and how your prioritization should essentially happen in that. So when I look at the spread in ESI here, so basically the good point about, let's say the previous pattern was that you basically had around 30 and 70 marks for 1 markers and 2 markers, right? So there were a lot of topics that they could essentially cover. Now with the advent of descriptive writing, what has happened is that it's difficult to cover so many such topics from an MCQ perspective, right? So from that standpoint, what has happened is now MCQ is only worth 50 marks, right? But the descriptive answers also have to be written. So the portions which have basically been highlighted in yellow are the ones where you basically had your descriptive answers or questions being asked from that perspective, right? So these are again topics that are relevant from a descriptive standpoint, not saying that the others you may not have questions on descriptive. Obviously that is definitely possible. So another important area as always is union budget. So when you look at the economic core concepts segment or the lectures there, you'll obviously find a specific segment around this. So that is definitely worth watching and spending some time on. And again, you have the I&R reports and basically the context there, which will essentially cover these topics. Right. Again, agriculture will also be covered there. Health and education will also be covered in the INR. And then you also have the industrial and labor policy, which is basically covered in the policies and reforms subsection in the ESI course itself. So all of that is essentially getting covered. Right. Of course, in the ECC segment itself, there is one specific lecture on poverty and it kind of covers that as well. And globalization, we've already covered holistically in finance as well, but it is getting covered from an ESI perspective as well in the IRR sessions and of course in the CNCA sessions as well. And again, there are specific notes that have been provided for your multiculturalism and demography as well. So a lot of these things are essentially getting covered. So when you look at the overall weightage perspective, again, your international economic organizations become quite important. Overall, right? Again, sustainable development, poverty have basically had a fairly important presence in let's say ESI over the years as well. So these are again important topics. So again, when you look at basically your monetary and fiscal policy, that again has always been quite important in that sense. So many questions have actually appeared in the last year and the year before that as well. Then again, another segment which is important is basically your urbanization and migration. Again, a few questions appeared there as well. And again, when you talk about public finance, you also talk about things like your finance commission, GST. All these things are also quite relevant, and there can be questions that can come from that standpoint as well. So these are the areas that are important. Most of these are getting basically covered in your core concepts and the other segments of ESI that we discussed in the previous slide. So you have to prioritize again in the context of that as well, right? So again, you have to look at the fundamentals getting covered, and a lot of these contemporary topics, like you talk about your urbanization and migration, you talk about agriculture, health and education, right? So all of these will essentially find and things like, let's say, a social justice as well, positive discrimination. So all of these definitely you will find a lot of presence in the core concepts also, but also in the context of your current and contemporary affairs, and of course your indices and reports as well. So technically coverage will happen both ways. So the important thing to understand from the perspective of ESI is that again, predominantly you'll find that a lot of your concept driven lectures give you the fundamentals of that particular topic. But when you look at the current affairs from that standpoint, you have to look at the INR sessions, you have to look at the CNCA sessions, and of course you have to look at the signs or the schemes in the governing news sessions. So again, when I say look at it, you can either, again, depending upon your understanding levels, you can directly look at the notes and gather the fundamentals from there, or you can basically mix and match it wherein you look at the sessions as well as the notes and basically get the understanding that is required. So it's entirely up to you, and of course the time that is available. The recommendation would be that you look at the notes first, and wherever you have a doubt or understanding problem, you basically go back to that particular session. Another approach that can be recommended is that, let's say, for example, when you talk about economic core concepts, right? So you basically have, let's say, a few sessions on national income accounting. So basically you start off with the first session. Watch the video of that first session. Once you are understanding the concepts very clearly, maybe the sessions 3-4 after that, or 2-3-4 after that, you can basically refer the notes and watch the video only when required. So the same thing can happen for the other things as well. So look at the introductory videos, gather the concepts, gather the fundamental, gather what the faculty is trying to tell you, and then basis that, visit the other sessions in the same topic and look at the lecture notes, and if required, go back and visit the videos. That's the approach that I would recommend, so that it saves a lot of valuable time for you guys, right? The other thing is, again, till phase 1, what we're looking at is that you have to look at weekly 3 to 4 lectures. Again, with the same concept, you're looking at covering around 32 lectures overall before phase 1, and technically from a watching perspective, this is good enough. I don't think you'll be needing to watch more lectures beyond that, right? And as far as notes are concerned, the same way as I suggested for finance as well, basically segment your notes, basically pick up a core topic, right, and jot down all your fundamental concept notes there, and again, all your current and contemporary notes also, add 2 or 3 pages next to that itself, and jot down those contemporary or your current affair related notes of that particular concept there and then itself, so that when you revise, you're not only revising the concept driven notes, but you're also revising the current affairs aspect as well. That becomes important. So again, we're looking at 5 to 6 hours weekly till phase 1. And again, as I said, from an ESI and a finance standpoint, gathering data is of course more important than actual writing, because writing will come only when you have good content. So from that perspective, again, till phase 1, you have to basically use your science notes, CBFA notes, INR notes, and CNCA notes to basically gather as many data points as you can and segment them in the way I've just told you. And again, what I'm looking at from you guys is basically an expectation of 2 hours on a weekly basis till phase 1. When we were saying 1 hour for GA every day, 15 minutes specifically for CBFA maybe per day from a finance perspective, and another 15 minutes which can either be spent on CNCA or INR or science. So you can mix and match and do that. And so roughly around 1.5 hours on a daily basis for GA, plus the current affairs requirement from the perspective of writing and gathering data points for finance and ESI. So that is the recommendation. So again, 2 hours weekly till phase 1 is the recommendation on this front as well. And then what you're saying is that after phase 1, you're basically going to look at attending the CNCA session. So there will obviously be a lot of additional sessions happening, because obviously the exam is still in June and there is a lot of current affairs still happening, right? There's a lot of things still happening in the month of March, April, May, June. So you have to cover those things as well. So basically there'll be a few more CNCA sessions that will be happening. And of course, we will try and focus these sessions after phase 1 so that you can entirely focus on phase 2 after that. So all the CNCA sessions after phase 1 are definitely a must that you should definitely look at attending. And of course, you have to also look at referring the remaining lectures as well, if any, which you wanted to watch before phase 1 but you could not because of paucity of time. You definitely look at spending some time watching those lectures. And again, at that point of time, you're looking at spending around weekly 9 to 10 hours per week. That will be the expectation from an ESI perspective. Then again, one thing which is common, which I was talking to you about in finance and in management and now in ESI as well, is that after phase 1 for descriptive, you have to obviously attend the CNCA lectures that have been there. Obviously, you've got to read the shared notes that are there from the perspective of CNCA, I&R, science, right? All of those notes also have to be read, right? And you're expected to write 2 answers every alternate day. So again, when I say alternate day now, it will be like 1 day finance, 1 day ESI, 1 day management. That will be the spread. And again, you're looking at spending roughly 3 to 4 hours per week on that, right? So I hope the nutshell as far as the ESI preparation is also very clear in terms of what is the target as far as the next 2 months are concerned and the month after that. Now what we are moving on towards is obviously it's not just important to basically just keep on studying without actually looking to attempt mocks. So it's important that you actually take mocks at this juncture, right? One, obviously it is a test of how much you've prepared if your fundamentals are correct. But whatever said and done, we talk about especially the sections like finance and ESI, you may have read a lot of things, right? And you may have come across a lot of things and stuff that you've actually prepared from the exam standpoint, but still you may find questions in the exam which you may have never come across. So mocks is what helps you to prepare for that kind of a scenario wherein, let's say you just have something which is absolutely new coming in front of you and there are 4 options given to you. So how do you use your best judgment? How do you eliminate options? That is something which can be learned only through preparing and attempting mocks and analyzing them effectively, right? So that becomes very important, wherein your phase 2 mocks will basically help you analyze those mistakes that you're committing and also help you improve further. So again, the recommendation from that perspective is fairly straightforward. The first thing that I'm telling you is that there are no mocks for phase 2 that we're expecting you to attempt before phase 1. Right? So all the mocks that have to be attempted from a phase 2 perspective have to be happening after phase 1 only. Then basically again, after phase 1, you're looking at 2 mocks every week for both ESI as well as F&M. Your descriptive writing has been integrated almost like a daily activity. So technically you won't have any issues from that perspective. The next thing is that this activity itself, right? Those taking mocks and analyzing them basically would roughly take around 8 hours every week after phase 1. So that is the expectation on the mocks perspective. And again, mocks are very important because it helps you sit in the exam environment and practice a lot. Again, of course, a mock can only do that much justice because it does not give you a real-time exam environment preparation. But the closest that you can get to an environment of exam is by creating the similar kind of an environment in your home as well. So dress up and ensure that you try to replicate all the situations that are there in the exam itself. Try to make it as real. The general saying that goes is that take each mock as the actual exam so that you feel the stress and the pressure of it, and take the actual exam like a mock so that you get de-stressed and you're not stressed by the big occasion. So from that perspective, taking your mocks like the actual exam and taking your actual exam like a mock is a fairly good strategy because your mocks then get more stressful. You're experiencing more stress at that point of time, and your exam gets less stressful and more peaceful, which can help you perform better in that context. So that is on the phase 2 mocks. The next thing that I'm going to be talking about is a summary of what we have discussed so far. So the first thing is what can be done with this plan, right? So you're covering all the important concepts. And again, as I said, again, especially in the context of, let's say, finance and ESI, you're looking at notes and you're looking at going back to the lecture if and when required. And of course, there are certain important lectures that you've got to watch in each, and same as this thing with management as well, as Ratnabha sir has recommended to you guys. So focus on getting your conceptual clarity and your understanding in place, right? That is the first thing. The next thing is jotting down bullet points and basically capturing all the major events and data. That becomes very important because even if you talk about data, it works in 2 ways, right? One, it is helping you crack your MCQs as well because a lot of related current affairs gets covered there. From the major events and data perspective, and these major events and data are also helping you in phase 2 in terms of descriptive writing, wherein that is where your interlinkages come into the place. So you get marks not just for understanding and the concepts that you write, you also get marks in terms of linking it to the current affairs, right? That is very important, and that is what your major events and data related points will help you achieve. The third thing is obviously the practice for descriptive. So starting off with descriptive English pretty soon, as highlighted by Ratnabha sir. And then once phase 1 is over, we start off with the descriptive writing on the phase 2 related subjects, which is finance, management and ESI. But does it mean that you stop your data gathering before phase 1? Absolutely not. So your data gathering as far as finance, ESI, management, all that actually continues to happen. And again, management in terms of whatever Ratnabha sir has recommended continues to happen as far as descriptive is concerned. Next thing that you're talking about is taking your mocks and how do you optimize your score, identify the areas where you're going wrong, revisit those chapters where as and when required. And of course, you also look at identifying what are the areas which could be improved in terms of speed, in terms of improving your timing as well. So all of those things become important in terms of optimizing your score. The next thing that becomes important is the time, because the time is of essence for us at this point of time because there is limited availability of it. So you have to utilize every single moment very judiciously, right? So what am I saying? We're saying that 7 weeks to phase 1, you're looking at around 18 to 20 hours that basically have to be given towards your phase 2. Of course, Ratnabha sir has very clearly indicated that the first 10 days of the preparation, which has obviously started 2 days back itself. So the first 10 days are predominantly meant only for phase 1. After that only is when you start focusing more on phase 2, because again, as I said, building the strong base is very important to creating the edifice or the building. So unless you clear phase 1, you don't even have to think about phase 2. That doesn't mean that you don't prepare for phase 2. So you have to concentrate on phase 1, take it seriously, but at the same time, give enough respect for phase 2 as well, because 1 month in itself will be very less for phase 2, which is where 18 to 20 hours for, let's say, the 7 weeks up to phase 1 is what we're saying from a phase 2 perspective. And then last 4 weeks, we're saying roughly 40 hours is what we are recommending. Again, this is the bare minimum that we are recommending. So even if you're a working professional, this much time is required. And yaar, itne important exam ke liye itna time to banta hi hai na. So this exam definitely deserves this much importance. But if you're giving consistently 40 hours in the last 4 weeks of the exam before phase 2, and of course 18 to 20 hours in the 7 weeks prior to phase 1 basically, then essentially you're giving decent amount of time and it can definitely help you in doing fairly well in the exam. And if you have the ability to manage time effectively as well, then you can obviously look beyond these 40 hours as well. And trust me, if you have good time management skills, 40 hours along with work and let's say even the other distractions is easily manageable. And even more than that is actually manageable if you have the will and the desire to be an RBI Grade B officer. If you actually do that consistently along with enjoying the process rather than getting psyched out and stressed out by it, you will find that 1, your confidence levels grow, your preparation levels get better, and you will also find that you will be in a very good position to crack the exam 2 months for phase 1 and 3 months for phase 2, right? So follow this strategy. It gives you the flexibility that you require, but at the same time, it keeps you on your toes in terms of what exactly needs to be done at what point of time. So follow this strategy to the T and you'll find yourself in an excellent position to crack the RBI Grade B exam. Let's crack this together. See you guys.